No mai haere mai e te whānau. Welcome to the Flight of the Nix podcast. My name's Holly. I'm on Gadigal land in Sydney, as is Danny Avis, and we have Erin Lim in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Welcome back.
Good to be back. Been a long time.
Yeah, world's longest off season, I guess, is almost over. And I feel like it kind of came around quickly, funnily enough.
It's such a long time. It's wild. Um, we're going to have a preview of the men's season today, and next week we will look at previewing the women's season. Obviously, we finished rather disappointingly low on the ladder last season, particularly having come off such a fantastic season the one before. So I feel like I'm hopeful for this season, and we'll talk about where we think we're going to go. But we were definitely, I don't know what the right word is. I don't know what I'll think of the word this entire I'll think of the word at some stage during this podcast. But we were definitely not put in our place, but. Let's talk about this coming season. We'll start with the squad. So Josh Olowaimi, LB Kelly Heald, Matthew Ford, Eamon McCarron, Corbin Piper, Tim Payne, Isaac Hughes, Lucas Kelly Hill, Matthew Sheridan, Ryan Lee, Jaden Smith, Finn Conchi, Paulo Retre, Hideki Ishiga, Carlo Armiento, Alex Rufer, Gabe Sloan Rodriguez, Kazuki Nagasawa, Fergus Gillian, Lachlan Candy, Mac Munro, Ifeanyi Eze, Nathan Walker, Luke Supik, Schwan Loke, Luke Brooks Smith, Dan Edwards, Rami Najareen, Manjeka James. The big sizings that have come in is probably Armiento, Eze Najareen, and the Canadian James. The biggest outs from last season is probably Sutton Wooten and Costa Barbarosis. How are we feeling? I should also say Coach Giancarlo Italiano, our chief. Kelly Guiamarish, I believe is how you pronounce his name, is the first assistant coach. The second assistant coach, it was supposed to be one bloke, but he has gone back to be with family. So we now have Luke Tung, who was just announced today. Thoughts on the squad? Erin, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. To be honest, I don't really know much about some of those new guys coming in. I think, having to replace Costa Barbarouses is a huge ask. And the pressure is on Eze's shoulders now to kind of just start the season almost full steam ahead. Um, and typically visa players don't do that for us and maybe even in the league. And so, yeah, he's got a big job there to do. And I just hope that he's up for it. Haven't I think he scored one goal in preseason from what I saw, and then I didn't really see much of him after that because we got knocked out of the Australian Cup early enough that he only played a few minutes. But yeah, he's kind of the make or break, I guess, for us. We need goals, and he's the one who's supposed to get us goals. And if he can't, then yeah, I fear that we're probably in for a bit of a battle. But some of the other signings look pretty good. Rami Najarian has come in. He's a solid A-league player. I think he's a pretty good replacement for what Kolakovsky would have been. Um, good experience and a good age as well. That kind of breaks up some of the young ones playing and the I guess some of the senior citizens that we have sometimes in the squad. But it's kind of the signing that Chiefy said that we were going to have. And I think he fits the mold well. But yeah, other than that, don't really know much about many of the other people coming in. And so hopefully, they can show what they're made of and start the season well.
Normally, sort of pre-season, I think the Phoenix have a habit of doing big rebuilds and bringing in loads and loads of players most seasons. And so, often when we're doing pre-season sort of reviews or we're thinking about it, we don't really know what's going to happen just because we don't know how these players are going to play and what they're going to be. There's been sort of less movement this close season. I think we've only signed two visa players, three or four sort of other players. Apart from that, it's people we had last year or academy boys. And yet, I still don't really know how we're going to go. It's very hard to tell. I think it would be fair to say I think the ceiling of this squad is probably not as high as we may have had in previous ones. Even if we have a good season and things go well, I don't see this squad really competing for a title, whereas a couple of seasons ago, obviously we did. Um, I would hope that we will do a lot better than last season. And there's certainly the talent in this squad, I think, to do better than last season. There's a lot of reasons why we probably will do better than last season. But how high we go, I'm not really sure. The visa players that have come in, Eze and James, again, we don't know anything about them at all, let's be honest. And we don't know what the Canadian League or the Iraqi League in terms of quality, and generally we don't know. We've never known. We didn't know how good Bozar Kraev could be or how good Zawada was going to be or Davila is going to be. But I think it was probably fair to say with those guys, there was at least a possibility that they could rip the league up, and actually they did, you know. Um, Whether these guys will, I don't know. There's still a possibility. Eze could still boss this league because you don't have to be that good to score a lot of goals in the A-League. You just have to really sort of somehow connect to it and have the right team behind you putting you in place. So let's hope that happens to him. And James, well, we have a good record of signing experienced central defenders from overseas, mainly English, but he's Canadian or Dominican Canadian. So I'm hoping that he will do as well as Wharton has done and Longpin before him, Stephen Taylor before him. So they could be really good signings. On the other hand, obviously, they may not settle, they may not connect with the way we're playing and connect with the A-League, and there might be reasonably forgettable, which I think it's possibly fair to say our two Japanese boys have been reasonably forgettable last season. They obviously are still skillful, have a lot of potential, and with the right system, they may come good this year as well. So it's yet to see. Amiento, Najarine, I think are, as you say, solid A-League players to come in. They know what they're doing. They've competed, maybe not been the best players in their teams or been in the biggest teams in the league, but they know what they're doing, and that can be useful, bearing in mind we've still got a lot of very young players in the squad. Um, I think we really, if we want to look for a successful season, we are looking for those younger players to come good this year. I think it was fairly easy to recognise that last year was too soon for many of them, and they played, if you like, too many minutes really in terms of the development, and that probably wasn't planned. It was mainly because the generation before them got too good too quickly, and we sold them all. And so suddenly we were putting players in who probably weren't ready, probably should have had, a few games here and there and then come on to this year. So I'm sort of hoping that playing so much last year hasn't hurt their development. I think for people like Hughes, it hasn't. I think for people like Brooks Smith, it hasn't. Those sort of players, the more you play them, the better. I worry a bit about Sheridan. I think he got played out of position a lot last year and never really nailed down his best position. And I'm hoping he'll find that this year because potentially he's a good player. But then we've got people like Gabriel Rodriguez, who, still, pushed as, probably the most talented player we've had at the club since Sarpreet Singh. Luke Supik hasn't really shown much yet, haven't had that much chance, but, hopefully he can come in there. So, and then you've got your Nathan Walkers and your Corbin Pipers as well, who, are probably going to play quite a big role this season. And if they come good, if this is a season where, when they really break out into being A-League players, then we have potential to have a decent season. Again, hoping, one, that injuries don't hit us the way they hit last year, and two, Chief's tactics, whatever tactics he plays this year, work better for the squad than they probably did last year. And again, who knows what will happen there? We probably don't. So it's an interesting squad. I'm excited. I'm happy to see it play. As I say, I'm not sure what the ceiling is for this squad. I don't think it's as high as maybe we need to compete to be the top of the league, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be, I think, looking for playoffs with this squad.
I clean forgot about Nikola Miljuznic. I don't know what it is. Every time we have these preseason pods, I can never find an accurate full squad list. Even for the, it's wild. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because it's the A-League. It's almost impossible to find one for the women. I don't understand why the club doesn't update on its website the actual list of players. That would be such a no-brainer. Anyway, so sorry about that, Nicola. So he's another incoming. And in terms of outgoing, we did also lose Chico, and now my mind has just dropped the name of that player. Oh, it doesn't matter. They're gone. Who cares? Look, you're
Marco
probably right.
Rojas,
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about Marco leaving
Chico
actually because he
Rojas,
was so
Kolakowski.
Collar's
Yeah.
probably the other one. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Marco played so little, I'd actually completely forgotten that he played for us last season. Uh, so yeah, obviously some of it does come down to things like injuries, but we are kind of guessing with these two new visa players, and the ones that we have had from the A-League, people like Najarine, they are at least known quantities for the A-League, so that will help, but they're not exactly like the stars of the league. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens, and we will need those younger players to step up again. And thankfully, at this point, a lot of those younger players have played relatively frequently, if not almost always, for some of them last season, and then that will be the kick up. And you know what? If this is a season that we have a great season, we'll sell them all and we'll be back to square one again. Maybe we get another season out of most of them, and then we're back to square one again because we sold them all. But in the off season, our off seasons are a little bit funny because you sort of have some of your squad, not all of your squad, or things like this. So in the off season, we did play in the Australia Cup. In the playoff in Darwin, we beat Brisbane 1-0. Against Perth, we won on penalties, that crazy long penalty shootout. Nunawading City, we won 1-0. And then Heidelberg, the eventual finalists, we lost to them 4-0. We also had the win over Wrexham, which was pretty cool. We've also seen some of our players perform in the Under 20 World Cup, particularly people like LBS have been really, really good. Schwan Loke scored a goal as well. So they have been getting competitive football, at least some of the squad. But that long off season is crazy. We have a pre-season friendly on Sunday against Central Coast Mariners in Gosford, which hopefully some people are planning to come along to. I mean, how much do you sort of rely on that sense of preseason games and how that makes you feel about the rest of the season? It'll be interesting to see us play the Mariners because I think we'll really finally get hey, this is like basically the full squads and it's almost time for the season. It's 1 week out. How does it actually go? Or can you not really place that much onto preseason results?
I don't think you can talk too much about the results, but you can certainly look at the performances and individual performances and individual partnerships and see how people are passing the ball and putting it together. So you look, yeah, it's like anything. You can read as much or as little as you like into it. But if you're being a bit simplistic and saying, hey, well, we beat more A-League sides in the Australia Cup than any of you, but Heidelberg, we must be great. I think you're on a losing to, you're going to be disappointed when the season comes around. But also you say, oh, well, we got beaten by Heidelberg, who are an NPL side, we must be terrible. It's like, well, again, you need to look into that in a bit more detail as well. Heidelberg were awesome and beat Western City Wanderers and some other A-League side as well. They were amazing during that cup run. Um, I mean, it is very difficult because again, those Australia Cup ties seem so long ago now. It's almost they were last season. We've had such a break from them. And yes, I know they've played a few games, but the club hasn't told us anything about those games. They haven't even said what the score was or when it was played or who played. So as fans, we're left in a bit of, we don't know. We've no idea. And okay, maybe next week we'll see them against Central Coast, and won't really know how they're doing in terms of development, in terms of the development curve, because it will be the first time effectively we've seen this squad a week or so out from the season. And it's I don't know. I find it frustrating. I find the long off season just far too long. I think and I know it's not the A-League's fault as such, but it really does enable people to lose interest in the club and in the league. You can go away and you can do a lot of other things and just get out of the habit of following the A-League and following the Phoenix. And the Australia Cup helps a little bit, but then again, that finished like almost a month ago now. But now you've got all this more dead space, and there's lots of other football happening around the world, in Europe or whatever that people can engage with. And I really think it would be good for the A-League generally and the individual clubs to really start thinking about their engagement in the off season and how they can keep their fans not just engage during the whole time, but start building them up towards the start of the season if they want a decent crowd at the first game. Because at the moment, they don't really seem to be doing anything to engage and say, yeah, guess what? The season's about to start. Are you excited?
To be
Because
fair, at this stage, the A-League has been mostly concerned about not losing clubs. And that is a talking point. Obviously, Western United basically went broke. Their license has been put on hold, so they've not actually been folded. I feel really sorry for all of those players who were, and coaches and club staff that have been affected by that, because really it kind of sounded like they were all given a runaround, as was the broader football public, about is there going to be a decision? And people talk about, well, hey, to get excited about the upcoming season, we kind of need the draw. And they kept delaying the draw and delaying the draw. And yeah, Western. So I think getting excited about the first round is probably, it shouldn't be at the bottom of the clubs thing, but might be lower on the APL plate. How do we feel about
Yeah, I heard
Western?
you
Or
mention. Oh, sorry, I heard you mention the Wrexham game, and I just honestly forgot that even happened. You know, it was supposed to be that kind of big, exciting marquee game over the off season that we won, and I just skipped my mind. I was like, oh, we played Wrexham, that's right. Um, but yeah, and so now it's just kind of been a, a bit of a weird time. There's been hardly any engagement, and the first engagement is kind of just saying, hey, we have a double header for the derby and the first women's game, which is a very strange decision. And then now it's just, hey, we have our men's games coming up. And I'm like, okay, but who's that? What's the full team look like? Are there team numbers? Is there anything to actually say, who am I going to even be watching? And what's happening in the preseason, how they're going. I think they had the open day where they played. I'm going to say Wellington Olympic. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. I just made that up. But they won 4 or 5-0. They posted some clips of the goals. It looked like pretty good goals. Um, but then that was it. And then now it's pretty radio silence until then. Um, but yeah, going back to Western United, I mean, that's dragged on for a while, and I think it was frustrating for the fans. No one knew what was going to happen, which games they could go to overseas, planning holidays. But yeah, also probably frustrating for the players and definitely for the club as well. They've got staff members and players who just had no clue what was happening, who had to try to find other gigs or try to know what they were doing, and they've just been dragged on and on and on. And so, it's never nice to see a club die, or sorry, go into hibernation or whatever they've called it. Um, but yeah, it hasn't been a good time for the league, I think. And feel like it's kind of noticing it with a lot of social media as well. A lot of the teams just kind of haven't really been promoting anything, and yeah, it's crazy that the season starts in about 2 weeks, and it still feels like we're in the middle of the off season.
the death or the comatose nature of West United. I think it's awfully absolute tragedy and really bad because you, I mean, the league just gets battered from side to side in terms of people's opinion of it, if you like. And there's a very, very strong opinion out there, which is declinist, saying the A-League is terrible and it's dying, and why should I watch it, etc., etc. And last season, it looked like maybe they were sort of coming out of it. We've had all the bad news or whatever, and then as much as we hate it, the Auckland FC thing looked like, okay, this is good news. You can have an A-League side, it can be exciting, you can have big crowds, etc., etc. Looking good. And this comes along and it's like, oh no, and to all the A-League haters, if you like, it's just another reason why they shouldn't bother to watch it and why they shouldn't, you know, talk it up. It makes it harder for the A-League fans, the A-League patriots, if you like, to talk it up to other people. Say, you should watch it because it's exciting, it's good fun, it's football, you'll enjoy it. And saying, yeah, but clubs are just falling over left, right, and centre, right? So really sad, and sad for the West United fans and the players and the whole club. And there, but for the grace of God, go us. It really reminded me If you remember the time when Terry Sapisos was there and he had this promise of money coming from the Far East, and it was always, no, no, it's coming. There, the loans are going to be next week, and it's going to be $5 million. And it was like everyone's going, "This is never going to happen. You're being had, mate." And and it turned out it was being had. Luckily, we survived. They didn't, but you could see it coming a long way off. And yeah, it's a real body blow for the league, and it almost feels like they've been punched, and the A-League is sat down in the corner, just wondering if they can get up off the canvas and get going again. But they do need to. They can't just exist. They have to keep pushing it as a competition that's worth watching, because it is worth watching. And I think, again, with their limited resources, that they need to start getting it marketed up and getting people, excited for the season that's about to start. And with the NRL season finishing and the AFL season finishing over here in Australia, maybe they'll start kicking in now. But yeah, they do need to get on that.
That's actually what I was about to say is yeah, the Egg Ball grand finals have just happened, so there's a little bit of a clearer air, and I'm hoping that around Sydney I'll start seeing advertisements um, on the bus stops and the sides of trams I've seen in the past. So sometimes people do complain about a bit of radio silence, but there does tend to be a preference to wait until I mean, the NRL is massive here, and then VFL in other parts of the country, and you just don't get anywhere. But you know what? Getting up off the canvas is not just a thing for the A leagues at the moment. I think it's also one for our men's team. Did we want to talk about our first game? So we will be playing um, Perth, Saturday, October 18th. That is 11:45 p.m. New Zealand time. Definitely a late one for those who live in Aotearoa. Now, that'll be interesting because we actually played them not too long ago and we beat them on pens in the Australia Cup. But it will be still interesting again to see how Scott Wooden and how Sam Sutton go. And they've picked up some other really good players too. Brian Kaltak, I think, is also a massive pickup for them. How do we feel about that match?
Again, it's one of these where it's hard to know. We played them, if you like, at the end of the season or pre-season, and matched them quite easily, I thought, with a very young side. But their recruitment has probably been one of the most eye-catching, if you like, of all the teams. Not because the players were spectacular, just because they all seemed better than what they had, and that's because they were coming off a pretty low bar from last season. So picking up your Wootons and your Suttons is like, okay, these are decent A-League players, and because they were a bit of a joke last season, realistically, it's like, okay, so they're going to be better. They are going to be better. And so that means that any team that finished just below them or just above them, i.e. us, we need to improve as well, or else we're going to get overtaken. Maybe it's good that we're playing them first game of the season. They may not have gelled so quickly, so hopefully they're still pulling it together because they've got quite a lot of new players in their side. Again, but then so have we a little bit. So how are we going to play against it? I would be happy with a draw, a point away from Perth in the first game of the season. I think we'd be perfectly fine. I would like a decent defensive performance, as in organised, so we can show that, yeah, okay, we can defend, we can play as a team. Which again, during the Australia Cup, we weren't that great defensively. I thought we were a bit all over the shop in all the games. We managed to pull stuff off, and we managed to attack and score some goals here and there. But defensively, I wasn't sure who was supposed to be defending where, to be perfectly honest. In fact, our best defender I thought was Paolo Retre, and he really shouldn't be playing in defence, or some people would say maybe not midfield. Um, so something like that I would be happy with. What will happen? Hey, I don't know. I mean, look, I'm excited to see what sort of formation we play and where people play, because I really don't know what Chief is thinking at the moment.
Yeah, rough one to get the distance derby away on the first game. And I just know that, if it's a big loss, I'm just going to be so pissed off that I'm up at 2 in the morning watching this team. So, saying that, I really hope that they kind of come away with a positive result so that we can kind of start the season on a high, or at least on a medium, um, and not kind of piss off the New Zealand fans from from day one. But yeah, obviously we have no idea what's going to happen. It looks like, just quickly checking, that they had a preseason against Melbourne Victory recently, where they lost 3-0 with a side that kind of looked almost full strength. So not sure if that's saying, that they're still a little under strength, or maybe Melbourne Victory's just really, really good as well, or a bit of both, or bad day. But yeah, I think it's besides the distance, probably a good first game that we could get in terms of level of team that we'll be coming across. So yeah, I don't know what the outcome's going to be, and I don't even think I want to predict it, but I'm just hoping that it's positive football, and a bit more exciting football than kind of what we finished the season on last season.
Yeah, it's hard to get a win in that fixture. I'd be happy with a draw, but again, yeah, more than anything, it's about the performance. Finally, the one that we all hate having to make the decision on. Do you have a prediction of where we might finish this year? I don't think we're going to win the league, but I think we should make finals. It was disappointing to not make finals last season. So, but I think with I think if we get out of that funk that we got ourselves into last season, because it really felt like a funk, um, our aim is minimum of finals again. I always say that every year. I feel like I say that every year. But anyway,
I think, yeah, I mean, I think realistically at this stage, I'll be happy if we finish sixth and made the finals, and I'll be okay with that. I know that doesn't sound very ambitious, but I think looking at the squad, bearing in mind last year, looking around the league, I think I would, yeah, think that's sort of the job well done. Will we do that? Yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, last season, when we looked like we could compete, it was when we had a good creative player in midfield, whether that was Rojas, whether that was Kolakowski, whether that was Chico. Now, we didn't have them a lot of time for various injuries. And when we didn't have them, we were pretty turgid in terms of basically we were just defensive and we couldn't get that ball up the pitch at all. And we all watched it and we all suffered through it. It wasn't great. Now we don't seem to have signed someone to fill that position now as that creative midfielder. Okay, you've got Armiento, you've got Najarine who can play a little bit, but they're not really those playmakers there. The only real play we've got that is Gaviscon Rodriguez. Now, he's yet to really sort of break out yet. And it's a lot to put on his shoulders in his first real full season. So I'm not really expecting him to be that. So for us to get that ball up top of the pitch regularly and not rely on someone just to score all the goals exactly by themselves because we haven't got Barbarouses anymore, that attacking needs to come through the structure of the formation that we play. That didn't happen last year because our formation relied on someone taking it through the third from defence up to attack. We haven't got that player now, so how are we going to get that ball up the front? And I'm not sure how we're going to do that. But then I'm not a football professional, and Chiefy is, so I'm sure he's thought of this. Whether he can put in a formation with these players that will do that, well, let's hope so. But I am keeping my powder dry. I'm not going to say that's definitely going to happen. It could happen. We have some decent players there. You don't have to have a super creative, tricky, midfielder to make the play to get the ball up the pitch for a striker to score from. You don't have to do that. You can do it without that kind of player, but you will need to have a very different formation and a way of play than we did last year. So if Chiefy can find a way to do that to get that ball into the final third, then I think we can probably do all right. But it's a reasonably big if at this stage until we've seen this squad play together.
I can confidently say we won't come 13th. Uh, but besides from that, I think the old Nix and six is the way to go. I think we want to make finals, but I just don't really think we believe at this stage that that's something that we're confident is actually going to happen. So the goal is always going to be finals. I don't think you'd want to come into the season saying, "Yeah, I want to come in second to last," even though sometimes it's kind of what you feel. But yeah, Nix and six, I think, is a good way to go. anything more is, I think, above and beyond what we probably would expect. But yeah, I think hopefully we can have a fit Alex Rufer for the whole season as well. We kind of fell apart a little bit when he caught mono, and he's kind of a bit of just solidity and just that, I guess, leadership and grit in the middle that we kind of lacked when he went off, and we were stuck with, I guess, a Shige and Nagasawa who, a kind of are not the same kind of player. And Chiefy's building a squad around someone like Alex Rufer, who was pretty solid backbone or spine of the team. Then, without him, we kind of ran out of ideas. He's the one who'll get the ball on the turn and play that ball forward. And rather than having a creative midfielder, he's at least someone who's pretty direct to get the ball up. And we were definitely missing that in parts of the season last year. So hopefully we can keep him fit and the other players slide into place. And yeah, we get Nix in sixth.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will be back next time with a chat about the women's season, which I think in a lot of ways is much more exciting and will be a really good thing to talk about and to look forward to. Otherwise, thanks, everyone. Matua.